Hi there, Michael Snow. Excellent, Michael. Unfortunately, I can't actually hear you. I'm wondering, can you guys hear me right now? Anybody? Okay, you guys can hear me. I can't actually hear anybody, so I'm just going to take a look here and see if I can come up with if there is a reason, why I can't actually hear you. It's probably be much better, I think, for all of us if I can actually hear you in the presentation. I just got some volume. I just heard. Yep, I can hear Nicole and Trevor, but I haven't heard Michael yet. But I can see you. Thumbs up and waving your hands up there. Okay. Well, there he is. Now I can hear you. Okay, so welcome to AI for Educators. Today we're going to be doing a two-part session, and in the second part of the session, we're going to do the education part. We're going to do a collaborative discussion where I've got some questions that I'm going to be asking you guys to hopefully, provide your feedback and talk a little bit about maybe what it is that you know about AI, or also do a bit of brainstorming. I've got some questions for you that so we can think about AI in the context of education. And in the first part of the presentation, I'm going to give you guys an overview of the AI industry. So it's a really big AI industry. I'm sure that you all have explored AI and you're looking, you've explored it, you're using it, you understand a lot about the industry as well. So we're just going to do a quick sort of run through of some of the AI companies. I'm actually just going to go ahead and click record and start the meeting. And then I'm going to, just do the screen share here. Okay. So before we start, I just want to say that VCC, the provider for this course, is located on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, which have been stewarded by them since time immemorial. I'm grateful for the opportunity to take this course on these territories. So a little bit about me. My name is Yuri Trices. I'm a Canadian from Lithuanian and African-American descent. I'm a web developer, researcher, and consultant. I come from a varied educational background, having studied formal sciences, history, literature, economics, and during the last 12 years, web development. Today I'm going to talk about AI in general, and then we're going to do some collaborative discussion about AI in teaching. So I've prepared some questions we can discuss in the collaborative part of our discussion. So I'm hoping you guys can maybe write these down, take a screenshot, think about them. Is AI an impediment to learning is the first question. Does it slow learning down? How might we guide students to learn more with AI as a tool? So we've got whether AI is an impediment, whether how we can guide students to use it as a tool, and what rules might educators want to enforce, if any, with respect to students' use of AI. We're going to come back to these questions after the first part of the presentation, when we do the collaborative part of the presentation, where I'm really excited about getting your guys' interactive feedback and hearing a little bit about what you have to say about these three questions and any other questions that you might have. So here I asked Llama Maverick 4 to create this web page, which has a lot of logos of AI companies. The main point of this is that there's a lot of them, and that I didn't know what they all are. So I don't really expect that anybody is going to look at a screen like this and understand what all of these companies are doing with AI. And the point that I want to make is that a lot of these companies are actually resellers of AI. And they do their own model fine-tuning. They have their own software. They're working with AI in the context of that software. They may have a specialized product. So we're just going to look at those big companies, those maybe 10 to 15 big companies that are the sort of the primary AI companies. So everybody knows about OpenAI. This is probably the most popular company. As you can see, I've got a t-shirt that says running on ChatGPT. I bought this from Redbubble. I was looking around, they had like an Anthropic t-shirt, but basically I think ChatGPT kind of, has got the trophy for having the best well-known brand. So they're founded in 2016. They've got a massive market cap. a lot of employees. Their projected revenue for 2025 is $12.7 billion. So they're generative pre-trained transformer architecture. All of the models are using transformer architecture. The models are trained on diverse internet data and fine-tuning with reinforcement learning from human feedback. So that's kind of similar. Again, the models differ on the type of data that they use, but they're all using this transformer architecture. They're a broad consumer and development adoption focusing on general purpose AI. So as an educator, you've probably heard of GPT-4. This is the latest one. It does images, video, text. You can use it for everything. You pretty much can't go wrong with GPT-4. So there's a couple of papers here. You can take a screenshot of these. I wouldn't recommend, reading all of the papers. I'm just going to give you guys the information if you're really interested. I did a degree in economics, some statistical probability inference, some higher mathematical notation, and I can grasp a part of these papers. They're very complex. They're very, high level. You can spend, it takes a lot of training for them to understand these. I mean, I get the general gist, but I definitely have to do a little bit more work. So I think in the context of AI for educators, we're not really talking about the science of AI as much as we are talking about how we're going to use it and how we're going to use the products and kind of the differences between the products as well. So Google Gemini is obviously its Alphabet. They've got a market cap of $1.9 trillion, 180,000 employees. So this projected 2025 revenue is 1.9 billion. So the numbers on the top are for Google, and that projected revenue, which is about a sixth of the size of OpenAI, is their AI product. Their large-scale collaboration led by Google DeepMind, specialized flash models for low-latency applications. And here are a couple of their foundational technical papers. BERT is the bidirectional transformers, which really gives AI semantics and understanding. And pretty much all of the companies are using BERT. And then Gemini, if you wanted to dig into it, you can take a screenshot and you can look a little bit more at Gemini. I think in terms of understanding the differences between OpenAI and Google, it's pretty clear. Everybody knows what Google is, how to use Google. So you kind of get an idea of the brand. It's a safe brand that you can go with. Meta Llama 4 or Meta Llama, probably my favorite company, definitely the coolest of or arguably the coolest of the AI companies. And their thing is that they want AI to be democratized. So they're really focused on using only publicly available data sets. And obviously you would imagine that Google wouldn't be doing that because they have an incredibly valuable proprietary data set. So Facebook wants to make their models available for use for everyone. And that might be something that you might think about if you're using, the Facebook Llama Maverick 4 or the smaller Scout version. And so their foundational paper here, again, you can have a look at the Facebook Llama model paper. So Anthropic is this company that leaves OpenAI. So there are these founders, they're part of OpenAI. And actually, a number of companies left OpenAI. Elon Musk left OpenAI and started his own AI company. And these founders of Anthropic also left OpenAI. And their main argument was that OpenAI is proprietary. They thought that they're focusing on the money too much and that might have some ethical considerations. So they've decided they're going to be a public benefit corporation prioritizing social good. And their flagship model is Claude. And this information theory, Claude Shannon, I think, is what it's focused on, what the name is built from. So it's focused on AI and safety, and they've got this paper which is AI and safety, which I encourage you also to look into. So now we start looking at some of the Chinese companies, and this one obviously is Baidu Ernie. They're really massive. They've got the leader in the Chinese market. Maybe you noticed the Bert and the Ernie connection. It's funny, but when you read the papers, it's very complex as well. It's funny in a complex way. So they're powering applications with rapid user growth, and their models integrate structured knowledge. So that's the Ernie paper. And this one is another Chinese company, and they're arguably as written about as OpenAI. I'm just gonna have to fix my camera here. There seems to be a bit of a problem with the camera. Just bring that back on. Okay, so they're a Chinese company. They don't really put all of their information out there, but their projected revenue for 2025 is $100 million, and they've got multimodal capacity as well. I actually used a free version of DeepSeek, and I asked it to answer kind of a relatively 1,000 tokens or something, and it just went on for pages and pages and pages. Okay, so Quinn Alabama, this is probably one of my favorite AI models. They've got an instruct model, a smaller model. If you hear the name Quinn, just know that they are doing something a little bit different, and that gives them kind of a competitive edge. The Alibaba model, the Quinn models, they perform as well as some of the larger models, and there's their technical paper. And then, of course, we have Grok, Elon Musk's company, which is projected to have 100 million revenue. And they're inspired by The Stranger in the Strange Land, where Grok means to understand something deeply and intuitively. And then there's also a comic book series about Grok, which is a clone created for the body of Andre Frost after the Martian masters had killed him and forced his daughter Camilla to replicate him. So I don't know what that means about where Elon Musk's mind is, or where Twitter. This is based on the thing about Grok is it's all the live updated Twitter data. So if you're ever looking for live information, you may want to go to Grok. They're known for being witty, rebellious, edgy, and their responses are designed to answer questions that other AI systems might avoid. So I hope you've all heard about Perplexity. They are where you might be concerned your students are going to get their answers. This is where Perplexity, you can just ask it to write a paper for you. It'll go ahead, it'll write your paper for you. It'll inject all the references, and it does a really fantastic job of that. They have 100 million in revenue projected for 2025. That's built off of 20 million in revenue. So they're growing incredibly fast, and they're really about conversational AI that could synthesize information in multiple sources. It's basically RAG operations, so retrieval, augmentation, generation. They mix the sources with the generation, and they verify it. So this is probably, you may want to go there to work on your papers and things like that. So other large companies, these are sort of the 5, 6, there's maybe 10, but Amazon, their proprietary private data. IBM, they were famous back in the Watson day for being the first AI company that beat humans at Jeopardy, but then they kind of flopped, and now they've got Granite AI, which does everything that the other AI does. And the thing about IBM is that they've got all of the custom industry customers. So they're actually a really massive and doing really well. So you would probably trust the name of the IBM Granite. And then, of course, Microsoft is GPT, and there's these smaller companies that are loaded with scientists, and the Mistral is a French company. They open source a lot of their models, so a lot of these other companies use them. And Black Forest Labs is kind of the European sort of powerhouse. So Microsoft, of course, uses both Mistral and Black Forest Labs. So that's really it. I hope I didn't, bore you guys too much with the discussion of AI. I find it really interesting. It's a challenging sort of field to present. Now we're getting to the sort of collaborative section, but I just want to ask you guys if you had any questions, or you wanted to talk a little bit about any of those models.
Just in regards to the one that you just mentioned, the Perplexity, how that's a bit of a concern for educators, because you were mentioning that that's the one that the students are going to go to. Would you be able to offer any insight into, because I know that there's models out there that are designed to catch, papers that are made by AI. Is that an accurate thing? Is that, real? Or can as a teacher, can you proofread for AI contributions to your students' work?
We're going to look at that, and it's one of the questions. So I'm going to give you guys a link that you can go to where you can paste the work, and it's going to tell you how much of that work is AI generated. And there's actually a number of different products. I've just been looking at one of them. Another thing that you can always do is you can ask AI itself. You can ask another AI the same question. So you could ask 3 AI and see if you get any different answers. And then there is an area where there is questions that you can ask AI, and you can see what the response is about things that don't exist, that you can ask them in a way that is suggestive that they do exist. So the primary example, and I don't want to use this example because it comes off of Reddit, but it's like it's marathon. You ask AI, when was marathon, crater on the moon first explored? And if the AI gives you a time and gives you a place and talks about it as if it exists, then you kind of know that it's bluffing because it doesn't exist. And if the AI says, I don't have any information about that, I don't know if that exists, then you know that it's maybe an instruct model. It's got fewer parameters. It's specialized in some way, or maybe trained in some way to be more responsible with respect to that data. Okay, so we're moving along here. So we've got 3 questions, and this is the first one. Is AI an impediment to learning? And does it slow student learning? So I'm hoping that one of you guys, or 2 or 3 of you, are going to sort of step up and, provide your input.
I think for me, it really depends on how they're using it. So if they're using it to simply go through and answer all the questions, well, then they're not learning anything. They're just using a tool to answer the questions for them to submit it and be done with it. But if they're using it just to help them understand a word or a phrase better, maybe that's more useful in that way. But I guess in my classroom I haven't used it a whole lot, and I kind of have a different way that I'd like to use it in our classroom. So I think it depends on what you're teaching as well.
How would you like to use it in your classroom?
Well, for me, because I'm a workplace educator, I would love to use AI to come up with responses like they were a customer, so that we could have like real-time role play, whether it be like a chat version where it mimics being a customer and they can give them real experiences in classroom setting, or mimicking real experiences. I think that would be really cool if we could do that.
Yeah, they're definitely working on it. I haven't explored it, but they're calling it agentic AI, as far as I understand. So yeah, so that's great. Great to hear your perspective. And anyone else?
For me, I teach architecture, and so the programs that we use are just starting to have plugins for AI. But since we're in the class, and everything needs to be done through IT, they can't really implement it unless they can't put the plug-in in. So I don't know how they would do that in my stuff. I'm not saying it can't be done, but maybe they do it at home on theirs and bring it in, but I don't know how it would register. I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't seen any absolute brilliance in my class. I don't know if that's on me or them, but that's something that AI would generate for their project in completing it. So
yeah,
but I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Right. It definitely speaks to the idea of whether or not AI is an impediment, whether or not it does slow student learning.
For me personally, being a student in this class, like I've had to learn about this course and the other course I'm taking with Dwayne, and learn what he wants. And once I know what he wants, I've used it to put together stuff, like to generate a PowerPoint, quickly, where I'm teaching at school and whatever, and then I can take it and generate the PowerPoint. But it's the words that I would normally use, but I just don't have time to put it together. So I make sure that I say, boom, this is done by ChatGPT or whatever. So
yeah, that sounds like that's one of the things that we can actually look at the answers. I think there are some answers. And AI says over-reliance on AI tools can hinder the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Excessive use of AI-powered resources such as grammar and spell checkers can impede language learning and writing skills, and AI-assisted tools can create a dependency on technology, potentially undermining students' ability to work independently. I really think that, personally, what you're talking about is how useful it is and how helpful it is. And I would say exactly the same thing. For example, it mostly did a lot of the work for this presentation. I had the template, but it kind of took the data and put it into the template. So I personally find it incredibly useful and helpful. I'm going to go on to the next question here. And this is, how might we guide students to learn more with AI as a tool? I'm just going to open this up to any of you that would like to speak to it.
I mean, it's kind of like a general answer to this, but I mean, I guess if we stick to like a model of like kind of information regurgitation, like you read something, you just spit out an answer, like a short little essay or something, then AI is really good at just mimicking that, or they can use that. But if we can somehow like reform the class a bit so that there is more problem solving and critical thinking, that they can use AI to help them gather the info, but ultimately they have to come into the classroom and collaborate with students like in person to kind of, in that case, they can maybe, if they have to like find a couple of articles, they can summarize articles, get some points, and then it can help them just get them in the right direction for what they need to do. That's kind of on us as an instructor, I think, to reform our classroom around using AI and less about, like I said, just information regurgitation type lessons.
Absolutely. I agree, 100%. I think basically, I'm not teaching, managing a classroom. I think that the collaborative aspect of any kind of learning, any kind of education is obviously critically important. So to the extent that you are getting your students to think, to learn, and obviously using AI as a tool is the direction that we're moving in. So I would almost say it's kind of mandatory that students are learning and using AI to some extent. Okay, well, I'll just, so AI's got some answers here. So they say encourage critical thinking and problem solving using AI generated content, which is exactly what Trevor was saying. Implement AI assistive adaptive learning systems for personalized education, and teach students to evaluate AI generated information for accuracy and bias. And this was what Nicole was or maybe it was Trevor, was talking about, how can we check the students? So I just want to, there's a link here to a website that AI built with Hugo, and you can go to that. That's the asynchronous presentation as well. So this last question is this is the last question. So we are approaching the end of the session. So this last question is drawing a line in the sand. So it's what rules might educators want to enforce, if any, with respect to students' use of AI? And this really speaks to also about, whether or not it's rules, whether or not it's guidance, whether or not we're talking about self-directed learning or behaviorist learning. It kind of speaks to some of the content that you guys may have explored in the course that we're covering. Anyone wanted to?
Yeah, regarding this, Yuri, I was looking at an article. I'm going to share the link to that as well. So please have a look for everybody who are interested, because yes, we can definitely use it as a tool. And I think the most important thing is that finding the right balance on how I can use this to refine my work or ideas. Even we have students I teach technology and technological based subjects. So AI is already there. Either you're building an Excel sheet, a Word document, or even you're learning a language. And there are some other, like Zoom right now, if you log into it, has AI embedded. So it's kind of, and we see that's like kind of trend that when we have early adopters, that people usually adopt that, and they can certainly benefit from it as well. At the beginning, I think there's always a resistance, even if you see the history of Netflix and how it come to existence. All right, so that also talks too much about how technology is basically changing our entire era. But this was one of the article that I was looking at. So, and the student was basically complaining regarding a professor using ChatGPT. Right, that I think that's Northern University. Not to like focus on the negative side of AI, but so we talk about a lot of good uses of this, but there are certain scenarios like this. So I would say, because you research and you look at, I think, a lot of other models that you presented, and I also look at through your async, and they had like links within links. But what do you think in terms of this? And I also understand, just a side note, that might be a collaborative decision from administrative and the entire university or college. But a scenario like this in a classroom, that students would say, because in technological course, I think I might have told you this in my session, that if I present from YouTube, they say, okay, if this is available for free on YouTube, why am I attending your classroom? All right, especially the technological things, like I'm teaching them about Figma or data sciences and graph. There are a lot of good things, to be honest, as well. We use it as an additional material, but that could be a case. Like, I'm also wondering if you thought about that side.
Yeah, I totally agree in terms of the fact that AI can always be a crutch or a tool. So in the context of getting AI to generate your classroom material, it's the opposite side of the coin, but it's the same as if students are using AI to generate their papers. So ultimately, students are going to be using AI to generate their papers, and instructors are going to be using AI to generate their notes, generate their slides, generate their presentations, and they're going to be doing it often, as you say, in the context of the classroom. So I think that in terms of, keeping your students excited and interested in the material, I would say that's up to, as you mentioned, to your stakeholders, your organization, the culture of your university, how much people use AI. But I am just going to show you guys a link to this verification. So this is 0GPT, and this is really where we can take a look at how much AI is generated, how much the content is generated by AI. So we can take an example. For example, we could ask the question of what we were looking at in the last slide here. And I'll just pop back to the slide. What rules might educators want? And we can go ahead and we can ask AI what rules might educators want to enforce in the classroom to ensure students are using AI, let's say, appropriately. And then we can ask one of these AI models. Let's go ahead. I have to put in some data here. And let me just make sure that I get that in correctly. And we will ask MetaLlama Maverick. We'll actually ask NVIDIA, which is also, it's NVIDIA 3.1, and this is Llama Maverick. It's going to give us an answer. And we can take this and we can go ahead and we can insert this into the AI trusted detector. And then we'll go ahead and we'll detect the text. And it's going to give us a number, which is going to say 50.88% AI GPT generated. So I think that's really something that you can bring to stakeholders. It's something you can bring to your organization. It's something you can bring to your students, where you can decide what line you're going to draw. You're going to say whether it can be 10%, whether it can be 15%. It kind of gives you some kind of a framework or some kind of foundation that you can build on in terms of deciding what amount of AI, is appropriate. And so this is zerogpt.com. And there's actually a number of these, which I encourage you guys to explore. So it actually looks like we're running out of time. There's still 9 minutes left in the meeting. But did you guys have any other questions that you wanted to talk about with respect to AI? Anything about maybe the thinking, the token use, the parameters, the sizes of the models, prices, anything like that?
I don't have any questions around any of those items, but I am curious because you know all these different things about the different AI sites and whatnot. Which one is your favorite or your go-to one that you would use on like the regular basis, or do you switch between different AIs depending on what you're trying to produce?
That's
everyone has a favorite stovetop burner. So what is your favorite AI platform?
So I actually like Grok. Grok is probably one of my favorite AIs. I use Llama Maverick 4. I'm using AI in the context of Emacs. So I've got a number of different models, actually GPT, Gemini, Grok, as well as Llama Maverick 4, and then some Minstrel models. And there are routers and companies that you can use that are open access, where you can sign up for them, and you're going to be getting an API key. And if you can use them in your browser, and then you can also use the models with an API key simply through. It's kind of probably sounds complex, but through curl code or in the context of an application, which is how you saw me using it there through OpenRouter.
Thank you.
The question that I had was, it looked like a lot of the ones that you were showing us were American or Chinese or even German. Is there really any being developed in Canada that are worthwhile, or anything that's Canadian made?
Well, some of the foundational models are from Canadian researchers. For example, I think there's a Canadian researcher on Attention is All You Need, which is one of the transformer architecture. Or possibly I'm thinking of there's a 2003 paper, which is basically a seminal paper as far as I'm concerned, which is, I think, Baggio 2003 is also a Canadian researcher. In terms of whether or not Canadians have a large scale company, I wouldn't know. I suspect that the answer is that we're doing what France is doing in terms of, France has got Mistral, and Mistral has got a lot of high-end researchers that are open sourcing a lot of their information and their technology. So my guess is that Canada is probably very well represented in terms of AI science, but possibly, everything comes out of Silicon Valley, right? And China. So, pretty much everyone's going to tell you that, like, let's say you're pursuing venture capital or something. Everything basically comes out of Silicon Valley. There's probably a lot of Canadian investors in Silicon Valley, but I wouldn't really know too much about that. I would challenge you to sort of maybe do a little research on that as well, possibly. That's an excellent question. Does anybody want to speak to that? Any closing thoughts?
I think that was really a cool presentation. I think the questions that you had here were some things that, some of it maybe I'd thought about before, But a lot of what we discussed today, I didn't know. I realistically, the only one that I was really aware of was, well, obviously Google, but ChatGPT is one that obviously is quite well known. But a lot of the other ones that you showed us today, I had no idea about, never heard of before. So that was kind of cool to learn about.
All right, thank you.
For me, I haven't used it as extensively as obviously what you have. I've done some fun stuff with it. If I'll put one in the chat. When we first started this course, Dwayne was talking a lot, and actually quite got to like him. I was intimidated about going into a doctor's course, you know what I mean? And so I was fooling around with ChatGPT, and hold on a second here. And I'd like to share. Can I put something in the thing for you guys? Hold on. Shoot. I'll put something in chat for you guys that I use ChatGPT to generate for me. Here we go, desktop. All right, here we go.
Can you guys see that? I've got the meeting chat is up on the screen. I'm sharing the screen.
There you go. So just by typing in his picture that he had there and say create I forget what kind of figurine it is, and with a doctor's name, and he was always talking about his webcams. I don't know if you remember, but he was talking about his webcams and his microphones, right? And so I added those in a bubble wrap, and it's just like I've got one of myself. I did one for my wife, who's a principal. I've done it for my kids who play ball and stuff like that. And it was very easy to do, and it just generates that picture. And if you don't like it, you just go around and think. But I thought I'd give it to him at the end of the course as kind of a fun thing. But he'll see it now, obviously, right? So
yeah, it's almost a spitting image of him.
Yeah, because he uses his picture, right? So you take his picture, and I didn't use his permission, but it was on our course, so it was out there. So I just put it in there, and he can delete it, and I can delete it if he wants. I'll delete it on my ChatGPT, but I did it for a kind of a fun gift.
Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible the way that the image generation technologies are moving. A lot of the companies that do have a web platform and they're providing image generation, they seem to be different than just GPT-4, or Image One, or DALL-E. So that's a really good image.
There you go.
Do any of these require subscriptions? Are they all free to use, or do you have to sign up and kind of get
So most of these companies require subscriptions. There are a lot of free models that you can get, again, through the open companies like Open Router, where you can explore some of the different free models. Most companies have a free service as well. So, for example, Brave has an AI called Leo, which you can just use directly in the browser, which is free and which is pretty good. Perplexity has a free, you can just Google Perplexity. You can use their free research tool. And so there are a lot of free products. Typically, the smaller models are around $1 to $2 for input tokens, and then usually it's somewhere, maybe if it's an older model, it'll be $1 for input token and $1 for the output tokens in US dollars. And if it's a reasonable model, it'll be around $2 for input tokens, maybe $5 for the output tokens. And then the really expensive models start to get anywhere where it's upwards of $10 for the input tokens. And the difference, the tokens, you use a 2,000 word, let's say an 800 word paper could be, and I'm kind of going on memory here, we're talking around, a token is about 3 characters of a word. So we're talking about a third of 3 times the tokens. So we're talking 800 words could be, I find, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 tokens, and those prices are per million tokens, which is pretty inexpensive. I'm guessing that image looks like a pretty good image, so I'm thinking that image itself is maybe $0.03. Is that how much you paid for it?
So I have a $20 a month subscription to 4. Right. So
Yeah.
that was generated. I just typed it in and generated it.